It's a male fantasy that the woman is going to love you as your monster self. I've been giving these little talks at these book signings I did, one in Nashville and one in New York. And I started out by telling a joke. I'm going to tell it very quickly because I don't have time, but about a screenwriter who has gone dry and he doesn't have any ideas, but he keeps waking up in the middle of the night with a fantastic idea, and then he goes back to sleep and he forgets the idea. He wakes up in the morning, he can't remember what his great idea was. So finally his wife tells him to leave a pad and pen next to the bed. When he wakes up, he can write the idea down, then he'll remember it in the morning. So he does that, and he, sure enough, 3 o'clock in the morning, he wakes up, has this fabulous idea. He's blurry with sleep, but he manages to scribble it down, goes right back to sleep, wakes up, says, "Oh no, I had the same experience again. I woke up in the middle of the night, had a fabulous idea, and I can't remember it now." His wife said, "Well, do you write it down?" And he says, "Yes, my God, I did. I wrote it down on the pad." And he looks at the pad, and the pad says, "Boy meets girl." And the reason I think that joke is meaningful, and it can be funnier when I tell it right, but the reason I think the joke is meaningful is because every story, and in some ways every work of art is about boy meets girl. Every story is about whether there can be a man manly enough to win a woman womanly enough that they come together and start the world again. That is the center of human life. That is the center of physical human life. And even though you can say, well, not every story is a love story, not every story is a romance, every story in some way is about, for instance, a man finding himself. Just giving an example, a man finding himself so that he can become, in another story, the man who finds the girl, or a woman finding herself so she can become the woman worth winning. Now, the reason our culture has died is because that relationship is out of whack. The relationship between men and women is out of whack. It's been destroyed by feminism. It's been destroyed by leftism. It's been destroyed by all of these things. Women are absolutely miserable. Men are absolutely enraged. They are not having babies. The human race is literally dying in the West because of this problem. So Frankenstein is an interesting story. I write about this at length in my book, The Truth and Beauty, and I point out that Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, which is supposed to be the first work of modern science fiction, she said it's about a man trying to play God. And I point out that it is in a sense about a man playing God, but the way he's playing God is by creating a man without a woman, which of course God does when he creates Adam. That's why Frankenstein is called the new, is compared to Adam in Paradise Lost in the book. And he does it without a woman, and he does it because his mother has died, and in some ways he's kind of becoming like his mother. He wants to take over the role of his mother, which of course is a theme we see in transgenderism today. And that theme runs through all of the descendants of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, all the science fiction and horror movies. It frequently recurs. If you look at the films, I think I've talked about this before, but like I said, it's in The Truth and Beauty if you want to get the details. But if you look at the films in the 70s, like The Exorcist, which is about really secretly about a young girl's budding sexuality, and it's portrayed as demonic possession. Carrie, by Stephen King, a girl's first period, gives her magic powers and makes her a vengeance machine. Rosemary Baby and The Omen are both about the devil becoming involved in childbirth. Alien, where there's a she-monster who turns men into women by planting her babies inside them, and that means that the female has to take on the male role and save the world. And all of these films are bookended by 2 horror movies that at the beginning of that period and at the end that are both of these horror movies are inspired by Ed Gein, who inspired the movie Psycho, where a guy becomes a woman and commits murder, and Silence of the Lambs, where a guy's killing women in order to dress up at them as Ed Gein does. And I write about all of that, the Ed Gein murders, more in The Kingdom of Cain. So Truth and Beauty and Kingdom of Cain both cover this stuff. But this fretfulness about motherhood, this kind of repulsion from women's bodies and women's key work of creating the human race becomes apocalyptic in films like The Terminator, in which the Terminator comes back not to kill the rebel leader, but to kill the mother, who's just an ordinary girl who's going to have a baby, and they want to stop. That's the process that separates people from machines in Terminator and The Matrix, a word that derives from this Latin for womb, in which people are enslaved in these little pods. And this was made by 2 transgender brothers who now call themselves sisters. And The Matrix, the womb, becomes a prison. So Frankenstein is really a genius book about a man who sort of tries to become his own dead mother by creating fascinating life. Now, Del Toro loves this book, and he loves Gothic imagery like I do. This movie, Del Toro's movie, is so visually beautiful that it is stunning. I mean, you stare at it with your mouth hanging open. And if it doesn't even make any sense. The beauty, some of the costumes are ridiculous. It's supposed to take place in about 100 years after the real Frankenstein takes place. But it is like Nosferatu. It is just a beautiful, beautiful movie. But Del Toro also has this obsession that ruins the film utterly. I mean, once you start paying attention to the script and the words in the script, the film, about an hour in, the film stinks. And this is a 2.5 hour movie. But it's so beautiful, you almost don't care, and the performances are great and all this stuff. My daughter, Faith Moore, has a podcast called Story Time for Grown-Ups, where she reads books and kind of explains classic books to people who have a hard time interpreting the classics. And she just finished reading Frankenstein. You can go and find her podcast, Story Time for Grown-Ups, and you can go back and listen to it. And she's really good at it, and she explains it to it. And she said about this movie, it's just Del Toro's old thing, In the Shape of Water. He wants the monster to be the good guy. He wants men to be monsters, and he wants, most importantly, the woman to love the monster. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened. Until you get a collection or foreclosure notice, then you'll know. So when's the last time you checked on your home title? Probably never. So you need to do something about it right now. And that's why I'm partnering with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. I know what it's like to get a notice that your home is going to be repossessed by no fault of your own. It is truly unpleasant. So use my promo code Klavan at HomeTitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code Klavan. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Klavan. But there's a catch. You have to know how to spell Klavan, and you probably don't. It's Klavan. The part of the woman, Elizabeth, in the movie is so badly written that it's you sort of wake up and go like, this woman makes no sense as a character. So here she is, she meets the monster and she confronts Victor Frankenstein, who created the monster, with his cruelty toward the monster. This is cut 7.
If I could force myself to believe it, it would be my inclination to seek attraction.
In you for that thing, understanding. In those eyes I saw pain, and what is pain if not evidence of intelligence?
Now, that makes no sense. And she talks like that the whole time. I saw pain in his eyes, and pain is a mark of intelligence. The hell you say? The hell you say? You can you can torture a squirrel and see pain in his eyes. It has nothing to do with intelligence. And the script is filled with lines like that. I created life, therefore I created death. You're like, what the hell does that even mean? It's filled with stuff like that because he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he wants to maul Mary Shelley's work into a work about women loving monsters. And in that scene, Victor Frankenstein accuses Elizabeth of loving the monster, and she says, no, I just understand him. And then in this scene, she actually admits she loves the monster. This is cut 8.
My place was never in this world. I sought and longed for something I could not quite name. But in you I found it.
So in the book, the monster is rejected by his father, the creator, Victor Frankenstein, because he's horrified by what he's done, and he runs away and he hides out in a peasant's house, and all this stuff is in the movie. And this is what he says in the book. He says, as he's listening to the peasants talk, he says, I heard of the differences of sexes and the birth and growth of children, how the father doted on the smiles of the infant, how all the life and cares of the mother were wrapped up in the precious charge, her children. I learned of brother and sister and all the various relationships which bind one human being to another. And so he learns about what human life is about sexuality and this divide between men and women and the family that comes out of it and the life that comes out of it. And he finally goes to Frankenstein and says, "Make me a bride." And that is how the film climaxes. And everywhere that the movie diverges from the book, it's worse. Everywhere it's worse, not just philosophically, but in terms of plot and action and excitement, it is just worse. Everywhere it diverges, which is the whole second half of the movie. And in the book, the monster says, "I want a bride." In the movie, he says he wants a companion. He wants a companion, and the woman loves the monster. The woman loves it. She doesn't want a man. She just really wants the monster, because only the men are monsters, but the monster is the man. And this Del Toro always does, and it's just not true. It's a male fantasy that the woman is going to love you as your monster self instead of wanting the man who is, a creative agent and a leader and somewhat of an animal, but not an animal. All the things that men are. This is a male fantasy of what women are like, and that's why her dialogue is laughably bad. And I've always said this. I believe that this sense of alienation from the feminine is connected to a falling away from faith, because motherhood may be the perfect example of self-sacrificing spiritual values above materiality, right? Of physicality. There's nothing more physical than seeing a woman, give birth. It's an incredibly material thing, but out of that comes human life and all its spiritual things and the gift of motherhood. Frankenstein is essentially the opposite of the nativity. That's the opposite of Christ's birth, because when God wants to become a human being, when he wants to become fully human, he doesn't just appear. He has the power to do that. But the first thing he does is he chooses a mother, because mothers make you human through their spiritual tenderness and self-sacrifice. And that's why mothers are so important. And that's why this anger of men against women and this alienation of women from men is destroying human life. It's just ending our society, because the only country that in the West that is still reproducing is Israel, because they are the people of God. So I want to talk about why it is that religion, why God, a relationship with God, is the answer, but not the way that some people think it is. For more great stuff, like and subscribe. And for even more great stuff, subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.